Well, all right, everybody, come down and take your seats. The time is 6 o'clock, and I promise you we'll get you out of here in an hour or less. If you'd like to stick around for the rest of the show, you're welcome to stay as long as you like. But it's an honor to have you all here. I'm Alderman Nick Palumbo from the city of Savannah, the representative for the 4th District, and we are very excited to share with you some monumental progress that we have made on the Canal drainage project. Come on, give it a round of applause. That's it. Now, the last time that we were here, our Senior Water Services Director, Ron Feldner, said it's not every day that we have a round of applause for a drainage project, and that is true. But I want you to know that this is a $40 million investment in the neighborhood. It is the largest of its kind in this district's history, and one of the largest the city has ever made towards resilience planning for our community, and with good reason. The neighborhoods that you experience here that surround the area of Hall Park, many, many moons ago, before it was known as Gould Estates, Gould Cottage, or Lee and Olin Heights, or many Midtown, different names, it was once known in the late 1800s as the Duren Swamp. And we have not experienced a hurricane since many of these, a direct hit hurricane since many of these neighborhoods were built. So we've been very lucky over the last century. But for the next century, after these investments, we'll be prepared. The most important thing that you'll see coming out of this are timelines and dates. We want you to be able to meet the team and see the infrastructure improvements that are going to be taking place to really celebrate them. Community resilience is an important thing and something that we have to continually strive for. Many of the pipes that you'll see in the street below you, some are as little as 11 inches in diameter. They're made of terracotta, they're made of clay, and what you're going to be seeing for the most part are two double 72-inch pipes? Double barrel shotgun pipes coming down to be able to upgrade that infrastructure. On the maps, you'll see all around the wall that'll be sticking around. Anything that's in purple is in the 100-year floodplain. And that means if you experience a direct hit from a tropical system, your home is expected to flood. We've been very, very, very lucky not to experience that direct hit where we don't have to hope on a wing and a prayer any longer because this infrastructure is on the way. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to some members of our team. We have joining with us Ron Feldner. Give him a wave, Ron. That's it, our Senior Water Services Director. And I'll be passing the baton to Mr. Zach Hoffman coming up in a second. But can we give a show of hands for all the members of Team Savannah that are in the audience? Excellent. Come on, give them a round of applause. These are the folks that are going to be doing the outreach, digging in the dirt, turning over some things, and we will be experiencing inconveniences in the neighborhood. That is the trade-off. But we can't hope and pray that a tropical system is not going to hit us in the future. We need to be prepared for tomorrow. I'd like to also recognize Mr. Taylor Carr, President of the Ardsley Park Chatham Crescent Neighborhood Association. Thank you, Taylor, for coming to join us. And I'll be sticking around for any questions at the end. Zach, I'm going to pass the baton over to you. If you have any questions, we're going to have breakout rooms. You'll be able to go around the room. TIC, the engineering team, who will be turning over some dirt, is right back there. We have lots of outreach events for you here. This is outreach event number 3, and I'm sure that it will not be the last. This is something that we're continually striving for here in the city, and we're going to take these investments as far as they can go. And then we'll come back again and do it again, wash, rinse, repeat, to make sure that every neighborhood is protected in our city from the 100-year flood. Without that, come on, enough preamble from me. Let's pass it over to Mr. Zach Hoffman.
All right.
Come on, Zach, give it up.
Thank you, Nick. I need half of Nick's excitement to put towards my presentation. I'm not going to be near as exciting as Nick, but I'm going to try to give you some of the engineering background. I'm Director of Stormwater Management for the City of Savannah. Been working on this project since I started at the city almost 12 years ago. And there was a couple of years prior to my coming on board with the city and stormwater management that this project was being worked on. This project, we have looked at about every possible way you can look at it. We have looked at so many alternatives, 30 plus alternatives. We have gone so far as design and bidding different routes. When you see the price tag on some of that, we had to back up, we had to re-look at it, design. We looked at, what I'm referring to as 63rd Street. Some of you may be aware of that. Then we backed up from there. Then we were looking down Columbus Avenue. The tree impacts were too much to stomach and too uncertain. So we stepped back, we looked at it again, and that's not counting all the many, many alternatives we looked at 10 years ago. So we are set. We have the best possible alignment we can think of for this project. We're putting the effort where the flooding is. We're not trying to carry water long distances, shortest distance from point A to point B, the shallowest excavation possible for the installation of this much upsized drainage infrastructure. And we think this is the best approach possible, and we have bid it, and we are ready to move to construction on the first phases of this work. So very, very excited about that. It's been a long time coming. So with that, we can flip through. I got to give you an idea get a little somewhat short presentation. I wanted to mainly be open to questions. We got, like Nick said, the players are all here, the designers, the project manager for the city, the construction inspector for the city that's going to be on site during the construction that's going to kick off here late March, just after St. Patrick's Day. You're going to start seeing mobilization of equipment and starting construction. And I'll get into some of the details of that. But TIC is our contractor. They are here with a few individuals present. We're going to talk about further design work that we're continuing to do, and our engineer that did the feasibility study for what we refer is a deep tunnel project. You might have heard about in our previous public meetings, but the design firm that did the feasibility study for that is here with us. And our construction inspector, as I was saying, is in the back of the room, our city project manager. And so we're open here. We're here for questions. We hope we're going to get some good questions. We'll open the floor at the end of the presentation, but then also we're going to break out and just do more of an open house if you want some one-on-one type conversation. So what we have is phase 2-1 at the top of the screen and phase 2-2. Those two are the areas we focused on first, and you can see the alignment running from Harmon Street to the east there, all the way over to Abercorn. And so again, the areas in purple that Nick mentioned are our known flooding areas, 100-year flood, repetitive flooding damages have occurred historically. And those are the areas we're focusing on for this construction work, phase 2-1 and 2-2. So with that, I think but you see, also on this slide, the phase 2-3B and 2A. Keep that in mind and kind of keep this general area for the next slide where you're seeing this flooding today. And that's based on our own modeling efforts with today's storm drainage infrastructure in place. So with the next slide, Nick provided me this, so I don't know where he found this, pieces taped together or whatever, but some historic map. But what you can see here is basically, this is what he was referring to as Durin Swamp. So essentially this is kind of your Truman Parkway and the Casey Canal, which runs through this area, which was a low-lying swamp area. But then this is Chatham Crescent is kind of right up in here. And then this is what we're talking about right now, Old Park, somewhere right in here, right in the middle of this Durin Swamp. And about right in here is, for your bearings, is Haversham Village. So all that kind of falls within what was historically referred to as Durin Swamp, with ditches that drained it out and everything. If you move to the next slide, this then kind of overlays. Again, I got my references, Nick, that provided me with this, but you have the layout. Now you can see Whole Park. You can see, again, this shaded, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but you can see this shaded area right here, which is Durin Swamp. So this is the area we're focused on for phase 2-1 and 2-2 construction that will begin the end of March here. And I can't look at this without showing also this area up here. So here's Chatham Crescent, and then some of this area, 48th Street, 45th, down Waters, and you see some of that kind of swamp area highlighted there. And then you've got an old ditch, it looks like it ran down right here. And when you overlay that, that's Cedar Street. And sure enough, we today have major drainage infrastructure, double 6-foot by 6-foot box culverts that run that same alignment. So we've maintained that same drainage. But as the neighborhoods got built out, wetlands got filled, swamp got filled, and now these areas are the low-lying areas, just like they were historically. And so we have to get that water from that Durin swamp over to the Casey Canal to then drain out, make its way down towards the Vernon River eventually. All right, next slide. So where we're at today, we've had a meeting last March, a public meeting about this. We had one also in the fall of 2022, and we just want everyone to know that we're progressing forward with this. We're in design then. Last year, since March of last year, we completed a single block. We had some damaged sections of pipe. Again, like Nick said, it was old terracotta, small diameter pipe that was draining the Reynolds and 54th intersection. We had some damages on that section of pipe. We needed to get in there much more quicker and make those repairs. We didn't want to repair it with same size, small diameter pipe. We knew we were coming back with 60-inch diameter pipe with this project, so we went ahead and did that block. And I think it was a very successful example of what this project will entail overall along the entire route of the project. And so we completed that last year, 54th Street between Reynolds and Atlantic, now no longer a 15-inch terracotta pipe or 12-inch terracotta pipe, but a 60-inch diameter reinforced concrete pipe. So moving on next, contract awarded. That's what we're mainly here for tonight, phase 2-1 and 2-2. We're kicking off construction again the end of March, and that will run from 54th Street from Harmon to Atlantic, and then on 56th Street from Harmon west to Reynolds. Then we turn south down to 57th Street and then run all the way out to Abercorn. And that's right in the heart of that purple blob that we were showing on the maps previously. So, and just real quick, while we're here tonight, I want to give an update, as we have done at the previous two public meetings. The deep tunnel project, it is not being constructed with what we are kicking off here in March, but we are continuing to move forward with it. Last year we did the feasibility study for the deep tunnel project. Everything looks good, it's feasible, we're moving forward with that. And so now we're looking to move on to the final design of that project. So we're looking, moving forward with procurement of that final design. And hopefully if we get that, everything gets procured, we could have that done by, say, the end of next year. And at that point in time, we will have good numbers on projected cost of that project, and we can then identify our funding source and everything to try to move that project to construction. So, and with that tunnel will be then the near surface drainage improvements, near surface underground pipes that will cover the area essentially of Habersham Village and Abercorn Street, which we all know, you know, as much as these are kind of neighborhood-based projects, we all use Abercorn. And so it's a huge benefit to the neighborhood, but I think it's a benefit to the community as a whole because we're all traversing through these areas and possibly during a large event. So we can move to the next slide. So this is a good example of what similar size diameter pipe was in 54th Street near Reynolds and Atlantic, and was replaced with the 60-inch reinforced concrete pipe. And so that work was done right here at the north end of Hull Park again, Reynolds to Atlantic. And so with this project that we're starting end of March, we'll be starting here at Harmon and 54th, working to Atlantic, which will then take all this water. And that's a good point to make too. So we currently have on Harmon running north-south a twin 6-foot by 10-foot box culvert. So very large infrastructure there that was actually built in the Casey Phase 1 project, which was done in the early 2000s. And if folks were present during that, I know there was some concern that was very deep construction, driving sheet pile. There was some issues with that project, and I'm very familiar with all those issues. We wanted to make absolutely certain that this project was not that project, and it is not. And I want to make sure everyone realizes that this project, we are not driving sheet pile. We're using standard open cut trench box excavation, and we have no plans whatsoever to drive sheet pile. So our deepest excavations though are at Harmon Street to tie into that infrastructure that was put in with the Casey Phase 1. But luckily there was enough capacity on that system that we could then tie these projects into that and provide 100-year storm conveyance. So starting at Harmon, working to Atlantic, then crews are planning to start back at Harmon and 56th Street, working up gradient essentially, as far as the fall of the pipe, drainage through the pipe, and then coming down 57 out to Haverford. So, next slide. So just to give an idea, this is 54th Street, some of the characteristic photographs of size equipment that would be present, type of excavation in the roadway, trench box type construction, you know, again, no sheet pile, a moving operation, installing hopefully a few sticks of pipe a day, and moving along. Yes, driveways will be impacted, in front of homes will be impacted. All the work should be occurring definitely within the right of way, hopefully more so between curb line to curb line. That might be a little more difficult when it comes to 56th Street, where we're putting in the twin 72-inch pipes. I mean, that's some big diameter infrastructure, so it really takes up a good bit of the roadway. With this work also, we'll be replacing, luckily our sewer, the resident sewer runs in the lanes, so we're not affecting that. But what runs in the road along 56th, 54th, and 57th Street is storm and water, the water mains. So with this project, we'll actually be replacing the water mains and replacing those laterals out to the water meters. So that'll be a benefit of the project as well, not only storm drainage. So we can go to the next slide. So again, that was 54th, the one block. I wanted to point out with this slide, we did design this project, Phase 2-1, to actually, we did this last year, this block, but we did design this to actually come down 54th Street to Aberport as well. When we put this out to bid, we have a budget like everyone else, and that we did have to step back on the full scope of this work because budget constraints. So that portion is designed. We still have plans to do that portion of the project, but funding will have to become available to then progress forward with that section, and that would be a future phase then. We can slide. So with Phase 2-1 and 2-2, this is more just more characteristic type images of what we expect to see out there. I think some of this was maybe Baldwin Park when we did an improvement project through that neighborhood. But I think the biggest thing of this is the bottom right is essentially what this moving construction operation needs to look like at the end of the day. Backfilled, bladed off, compacted, and you know, that disturbance that's in front of your house one day, possibly for a week, is hopefully moving on past your house. And so right now we're looking, contractors telling us he expects to not impact any driveway more than 2 weeks. So it's a moving operation. Will you have asphalt out in front of your house? No, it may be dirt, gravel temporarily that can be driven over and traversed over, and until we come back, and then everyone gets a new street also, new asphalt curb to curb. So everywhere along this route will be new pavement when it's all said and done. Okay. So this is where I just again, I wanted to focus on the construction and what's starting here late next month, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the tunnel project that we're all very excited about. New technology, not new technology, but new technology for Savannah. We don't have any other deep tunnels that I'm aware of in Savannah. But this is a method that Charleston, as some people might be familiar with, Charleston has used it in recent time to convey sewer and stormwater, actually. So it's very proven technology. These tunnels are crisscrossing the peninsula of downtown Charleston. So very proven technology, same geology pretty much here as Charleston, deep marl, which is perfect for this kind of work, and provides us a method of moving water, again, from point A to point B without having the impacts on the surface. And that is critical, because when we were looking at draining this area of Habersham Village and designing it, that's what kept getting us, having to make us step back, is deep excavation, because we go through essentially this Durin swamp is here and kind of runs northeast, southwest, but then we're getting the water to the Casey Canal, and the problem is this area here runs also northeast, southwest, is kind of a ridge. So to get through that ridge, getting water to the Casey Canal, that's where we were having to look at deep excavation and sheet pile if we were installing that infrastructure from the surface. And that's where you get into damaging houses and vibrations and all that kind of stuff, and that's we're out of that game. So we moved to this technology, and I'm very excited about it. Very excited about the opportunity to use this to take care of this area. So we are, again, moving forward with, we have the funding to move forward with final design of the tunnel. And again, hopefully we can procure that to get started, and in about another year and a half, have that design done, and then be looking at our funding opportunities, grants, SPLOST, whatever opportunities we can to try to move forward with that project. All right. And I'll let, I've got Stephen O'Connor and Jonathan Ladd with Black and Veatch, who did our feasibility study last year on the tunnel. So I'm gonna let him talk about it. And some of these photos are examples of the tunnels they did in Charleston. And so I'll just give him an opportunity to really spotlight this on a few more slides, and then we'll be open for questions and we can break out.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. As Zach mentioned, this technology has been used in Charleston for over 25 years. The image on the screen here is the Spring Fishburne Tunnel. Very similar geology as Zach mentioned, so we did borings during the feasibility study here to confirm that the geology underneath Savannah would be acceptable for tunneling, and it is. It's a Cooper marl material, it's a clay, so very stiff clay that you can usually excavate sometimes by hand and via a simple tunnel boring machine, which is what we'd anticipate for this project. So the diameter of the tunnel would be about 10 to 11 foot excavated, and that's what you're seeing here. So in Charleston, very similar idea. You have the near surface connections, similar to what Zach was showing in the other photos, the box structures, the traditional reinforced concrete pipe, collects the water at the surface, puts it down a deep vertical shaft, and then into your deep tunnel. So we'll be about 100 feet below Savannah here, and then via gravity, it will flow to the Casey Canal. And same here, there'll be a deep shaft, so the tunnel will come in, water comes from the surface into the tunnel, and ultimately out through an outfall into the canal. A pump station can be added later for additional volume, but the idea is that you have gravity flow. And Zach showed the photo, and I'm happy to talk about it, but a really good example, and some of the next photos, Ron, if you want to go to, is you're not disrupting but two areas for the entire project. That's the uniqueness. You have a shaft site at the one end and one shaft site in the other, and everything in between is deep below the infrastructure and is not causing any disruption. This is intended to show that everything still remains on the surface. You can still build infrastructure on top of the tunnel, so that's part of the consideration. So there's an easement, deep easement below, and then everything above can still remain. This is showing that piles can still be driven. Infrastructure above is not impacted by the tunnel construction. Some more photos. This is the same image that was shown, the pictorial image before. These are actual photos of construction. This was a 15-foot diameter tunnel boring machine. I would anticipate something very similar to this in Savannah. This machine was built in the 1970s. Some very proven technology. This was used on 7 different projects before it came to Charleston. So that's kind of the similar technology we'd anticipate. You're getting a machine that's proven, has been used in other similar ground. This is between infrastructure, so this is the US 17 bridges over the Ashley River. But the idea is to show how close you can get to some critical infrastructure with these deep shaft locations. And here's an image of the tunnel boring machine being lowered into the shaft. And this looks like a mirror image, but it's actually the intersection of two tunnels below US 17 in downtown Charleston. You have an 8-foot, eventually 8-foot finished diameter tunnel and a 12-foot finish. What you're seeing here is the excavated and supported tunnel with wooden lagging and steel ribs. And that's the same type of support we'd anticipate in Savannah. That's the same image, but this shows during excavation. You can see the muck car, they call this. So that is train tracks go in the tunnel. The muck cars go up to the face of the tunnel boring machine. The material's dumped into those muck cars, and then they come back out, lifted out of the shaft, and they haul that material away. While they're pushing the tunnel boring machine forward, they're lining it with these steel ribs and the wooden lagging. It's like a wine barrel almost on its side. Very old technology, but simple and effective. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're having a reinforced or sometimes unreinforced concrete line infrastructure at depth. This was an extension to that tunnel system, so connecting to the medical district in Charleston to help drainage there. And this is a house that's occupied during construction. So deep shaft, 100-foot, 150 feet deep, and that is a 20-foot diameter shaft, so maybe 30 feet from the foundation of that home. We are not anticipating being that close to any property, any house on the tunnel project here, but it's just to show the disruption is very minimal. This is the only site that, other than the other drop shaft site, that you have disruption along what would be a mile-long stretch of tunnel. Another image, so coming from Habersham all the way down to the hospital access road, that Casey Canal, and this is showing that the tunnel will be in what we're calling the marl formation. So get through the superficial soils, which are less, they're not as good as the marl, so you want to get down to the material that's better for tunneling. And so you have the shafts down deep, and then once you're in this nice marl formation, this is where the tunneling would occur. One more image of the tunnel. You can see some of the borings we did. So B1, B2, B3, some of the initial geotechnical to confirm that it was feasible. And so one of the ideas is to go from the school here underneath, and you're taking the quickest route, like Zach mentioned, the quickest route from point A to point B. That's the intent here.
And that's planned 61st Street. We would try to stay within city road right-of-way with the tunnel below. So when you're looking at having to get deep tunnel easements, the idea would be to put it in the road right-of-way so that we're essentially have that vertical easement, a right-of-way already. And then it would go down Lexington Avenue, but it would cross over some private areas there, Calvary football field. But yeah, so we would need to gain some of those easements, but as the exhibit showed earlier, I mean, deep pile foundations can be installed over the top of this, no issues whatsoever. I mean, we're that far down and below the marl, so no impacts whatsoever to any future development or construction of any size.
Just a close-up of the proposed shaft location near Habersham. This is really the low point in the system. So all the drainage will flow to this shaft site and will drop in here and then be conveyed to the Casey Canal. Anticipated in a 30-foot diameter shaft. That may go down depending on contractors' decisions there, but ultimately it's a 30-foot diameter shaft into what will be a 10-foot diameter tunnel. So this is showing all the drainage that would ultimately connect to up to that tunnel shaft. And likewise, at the other end would be the outlet shaft. So you're seeing the hospital access road, Truman Parkway on the other way, and the Casey Canal. So once the water gets here, it comes up vertically into the shaft, and there will be an outfall constructed under the road connecting to the Casey Canal.
And the plan with that is not to have a pump station, is to size that tunnel and the vertical shafts, entry and exit shafts, to actually handle gravity conveyance. So there may be a small pump for dewatering or something like that, but a station that requires a lot of electrical, input or whatever to operate, and we're planning to use a gravity type system. And there's enough differential elevation between Haversham Village and the next to the Casey Canal there to accomplish that.
That's right.
So with that, yeah, Nick, come up and.
Before, we're gonna open it up to some questions. Can we give these folks just a round of applause here? Yeah. You have to know how well respected they are in their fields as engineers to be able to deliver this investment to our community. I will admit, nobody invites you over to your house to show off the new water pipes that you installed, but they are absolutely necessary, especially for older neighborhoods. We've been very blessed and very lucky as a community not to experience a major tropical event in the neighborhood. If we had in the last century, the neighborhood would look very different than it does today. But we don't have to wait any longer. Now, I know that this will be slow. It may be a little painful. And from our experience, that we're going to find some things in the existing stormwater network that are not supposed to be there. Illegal gas connections, blockages, but we're going to remediate them as we move along. Before we open this up to questions, I did want to introduce you to one VIP. For this project, and it's such a monumental investment, there is one guy on the scene dedicated to answering your questions and to be that personal point of contact for every member of the community. Philip Caligotonis, if you could please stand here and just come and say hello. You may have seen Philip on the door hangers and the flyers that are out there. Please stick around and grab his contact information from him. His cell phone number is 912-755-9998. Again, that's 912-755-9998. But if
QR code on there as well. Okay. It's on the door hanger.
It is on the door hanger, and he is deeply and intimately connected to this project. If you have any questions specific about timelines, what's happening on your block, any questions or concerns, it is Savannah, Georgia. When we open up a street that we haven't opened up in a century, we're going to find some stuff. We are, but we're going to keep working through it together. It'll be slow, maybe a little painful, but it's absolutely necessary. It's going to help protect the neighborhood. So with that, do you have any questions for the team? Yes, sir.
So the tunnel, conceptually, it's like a giant sink trap. What do you do with stuff that precipitates?
Yeah, and Zach mentioned it, but at the bottom you'll put a dewatering pump so you can get it in there and clean it out. What we found over time is we have enough velocity that it actually scours that out and keeps it clean enough.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, you can get access to that shaft to clean out what would be the buildup of the sediment down there. Yeah,
It's
a good question.
There'd be like a larger debris, like trash rack or something at the entry of the pit, maybe?
There can be, yeah, so you can design it so you either catch the debris at the inlets or you catch it before it goes, the big stuff before it goes in. You have the basketballs and the bottles you don't want getting into the system. So.
Great question. Yes, sir.
All three streets simultaneously or in sequence?
No, so we, and I do want to introduce, I'm going to make them walk up here for more questions and then we can break out. But the contractor will be dictating his schedule and that sort of thing. But talking with him, you're planning to do Harmon on 54th Street, complete that to Atlantic, and then drop down to Harmon and 56, and then start a moving operation along it.
Starting at Harmon.
I'm sorry?
Starting at Harmon?
You walk up there and show them again on the.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Starting in Harmon, yep.
Okay.
Starting right here, Harmon 54th, that's where you'll see some activity. Late March, right after St. Patrick's Day, you should start seeing some equipment mobilizing right here. So they'll start here, they'll work their way to Atlantic, tie in to what we did between Atlantic and Reynolds. Then as they're completing that, you'll start seeing activity down at Harmon and 56, and then they will begin a moving operation installing this twin 72-inch. These are 60-inch reinforced concrete pipe, okay? 5-foot diameter pipe along here, tying into 5-foot diameter we installed at this block. This block here, these three blocks are actually twin or double barrel 72-inch pipes, a little bit bigger infrastructure, a little bit bigger drainage area. And currently, you have existing infrastructure. We're not removing existing infrastructure. We're just adding infrastructure. So currently you have down 55th Street a 48-inch reinforced concrete pipe. So that will remain, and then with these projects going on, it just provides that much more conveyance capacity, relieves the stress on those existing pipes. And even though, you know, we had to step back a little bit and take this out of our scope of work, this grade here and to Reynolds here, it drops about 3 feet between Abercorn and Reynolds. And again, so just getting this tied in to Harmon is suddenly going, and it's not just the road that this infrastructure is being placed in. I mean, it's the adjacent, because there's other storm drainage pipe running north-south on these other roads, Batty, Habersham, and so suddenly you relieve capacity, you free up capacity on those lines to move the water out. So it's not the improvements just along the route. You're going to see improvements throughout this area, throughout the neighborhood.
And that's a great question. We're also going to produce a simplified schedule for a website dedicated to this project. We do have an email sign-up list sheet. Please sign up for updates as well to stay in the loop on what's happening with the project as it moves forward. Yes, ma'am.
If there's damage to your property during this, who's going to be repairing it?
That is a great question. So what I encourage you to do, now this is an entirely different construction technique from the prior project.
Well, also talking lawn, trees, anything, because you're putting a double-barrel shotgun down 56th. That's 12 foot wide.
That's right.
Plus, you're putting in a new water main, correct?
Right.
So we're looking at quite a bit. Something's got to go somewhere.
That's right. And this is major, I mean, no doubt about it. We are moving heaven and earth to make this possible to protect your home. Please give a call. What I want you to do is take a picture of your house and the conditions that as they exist right now out in the sunshine so that you can see it. If that happens, call Philip, let him know, and we'll help get you square and get you straight and set again. We don't expect any of those things to ever happen. We don't want them to happen, but we are moving heavy equipment because the problem is that dire. It's been that long. But thank you, that's a great question.
Understanding that on 54th Street, like 60 inch, like you say, I mean, you got to think of the size of this. We should stay within the curb line. You know, but we are digging a trench. We're having to stockpile the material. Does it go over the curb line? Does it go into the front yard? There's more likelihood of that, obviously, on 56th Street with double 72-inch cars. Any of that damage to the landscape or something like that, I mean, we're going to clean that up, dress that up, regrass, reside, whatever we got to do to make that square. So if there's realize that the city's right away, you know, everyone probably knows, but maybe not, but it goes outside the curb line, up into the yard, 10, 15 feet. And so just realize if something is being stored on your lawn, just behind the curb line, that's going to be addressed and stabilized and put back right when it's all said and done. We're not going to allow the contractor to tear your front yard up and walk away. So.
Yes, Jen.
You've actually answered all the questions that I've prepared, so thank you. But I'm delighted to hear that we're getting a new water line. What are the anticipated interruptions with our water service?
That's a good question, and I'm going to throw something at the contractor. So, John or Greg, y'all want to come up and I need to introduce these folks anyway.
Come
so that will y'all first of all just TIC is our contractor. If y'all the folks from TIC, if you just
Come on up.
Come on up, come on up. Don't be shy. I know that everybody hates public speaking. Come on.
Or we could just turn our chairs around.
All right.
So TIC is our contractor awarded this project, big project, big shoes to fill here, and but yeah, we're here tonight. They wanted to be here tonight. We want to get out to the public. We want to answer as many questions as we can, and try to relieve any anxiety or misunderstanding or anything like that. So please fire away. So that question again, I'm sorry.
Disruption to water service.
Yeah, so we are putting a new system in, so there'll be switching over going on. That's a very brief thing, going from old to new. Hopefully we won't be breaking the line, but if we do, we'll repair it, but it'd be very brief. Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, you know, obviously plumbing issues can occur anytime. I do want everyone to know we are not there should be no impacts to your sanitary sewer system with this project. I mean, that is in the lane behind the houses is the sewer main, and your sewer laterals should be going from your house to the lane to tie into that. So out in the street in front, you should not have any interruption to your sanitary sewer, but your water main will be replaced. So there will be some period of time in which, it'll be disconnected.
But you'll build the new system while the old system's still operational, and then you'll just switch it over.
Switch it over.
So
Correct.
it's a quick action.
Be
very
It's
minimal
very-
disruption.
Very quick action.
And I got a note here that we'll have a communication system for the residents on the day when those switchovers are gonna happen, which is very similar to what we're doing with the AMI smart meters right now. When your meter's replaced with a smart meter in the current program, we're notifying people of that, 30-minute interruption in service, when we change out the meter. So it's gonna be a similar thing when we change over service, and we'll probably end up changing over all the meters to the new meters as part of this project as well.
Okay.
Why are we gonna be in the box tearing up the street? Just swap out the meter when you connect the new system.
Right. Okay. New meters as well.
Excellent, all right, yes.
Parking. I've got a spot in the lane where I head in and I pull into my back, but there are many people who do not.
That's right, and there will be parking disruptions as it moves forward. But if you took a look at the construction on 54th Street, the entire street was not blocked at the same time. If they're implementing the infrastructure right in front of your house, they try to do 2 links per day. You'll have to park a little farther down the street for those days, but they do repave as they go. So you'll still be able to access your driveways. For those days that they'll be working right in front, just be patient with us. But we're not going to block the entire street to work on it at that time. It's going to be rolling progress up and down the street. And before I forget, don't forget that when this is finished, you get the lovely opportunity to haggle with your property insurance. Because we're making a $40 million investment in your neighborhood and taking you out of the 100-year floodplain, you should be seeing a discount on your property insurance. However, you have to ask for it. They're not going to do it automatically. Why would they go and do such a thing? So as it's complete, be sure to take pictures of the construction, show them the evidence that it happened, and ask for a recalculation. I hope that you have flood insurance. If you do not, okay, that's your choice. But if you do, you should see a significant discount on your flood insurance and your homeowner's insurance as well to save you some money. Okay. Now, with that,
I'll mention one other thing. Talking to the contractor, the vibrations that anyone should feel would be not driving sheet pile. Again, we're not doing phase 1 that we did in the early 2000s, but this is big, heavy equipment, and as it just walks on the asphalt in the street, it's like a big, heavy truck going down the street and hitting a speed bump or something, and that causes vibrations. So if you do feel some vibrations, that's what you're going to feel. Very low rate vibrations and not the high intensity of driving and setting sheet piles. So we're totally different type of construction methods than we used in the phase 1.
oh, we have 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
I get it, we learned the wrong way to do it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I was living in another part of the neighborhood back then. Are you gonna do any seismological monitoring or recording? In case arguments ensue about cracking on brick foundations and whatnot?
At this point in time, we do not have plans to do that. We didn't do that on 54th Street at Reynolds and Atlantic. We didn't seem to have problems associated without doing that. The contractor, that's kind of up to their means and methods if they want to incorporate that into what they're doing. I guess it depends on.
Well, just to add to that, though, we used to at Baldwin Park several years ago. Same type of construction methods, but no vibration issues there at all. It was sheet piling that caused those problems, and we're not doing that.
Thank goodness, no sheet piling, no sheet piling. Yes.
Yes, I live at 56 in Harmon,
Okay.
and I was here in 2005, went through that. How are you going to, when 56 and Harmon, that intersection, we had sheet piling, how are you going to get down that far down without sheet piling to connect the 6-foot pipe?
Correct. Yeah, I'll let the contractor, if they
We use a
want.
tool, it's a trench box.
Yeah.
It's
And
a
you say
shield.
you're not gonna use sheet piling
No,
even
ma'am.
at that intersection?
No,
to
no more
connect
cranes and
pipes?
no more cranes and vibratory hammers. It's just it's a structural, box, basically, that we excavate and install as we excavate down.
Like that.
And all
No
we have
vibrations.
we have to connect to the side of that wall, not all the way to the bottom where that construction had to dig down so much deeper to build up.
Is it
So yeah, we're
less than
connected to it,
30
but we're
feet
not as deep as that is.
And thank goodness the technology and the methods have dramatically improved over the last couple of decades, especially for phase 3. You know, we were looking at some dire options to be able to get the infrastructure where it's needed most. And honestly, have to go through neighborhoods that didn't need the infrastructure to serve the ones that did. So the technology and the methods are improving. We use try to be as minimally invasive. Now the trade-off is it is a little slower. It is a little slower, but you're not going to see the same damaging. You're not going to see the same impacts that you will, and be able to build as you go.
At Harmon and 56, the infrastructure that was put in the early 2000s, I believe I'm right. I'm trying to remember what we have on our asset management, but I think it's twin 6-foot by 10-foot box culverts. So these are 20-foot wide and 6-foot tall structures. And then at that intersection, you have a junction box that those tie into as lines go different directions. So massive, massive infrastructure that was put in with that project. And all we're doing now, I say all we're doing, is tying two 72-inch pipes into that structure that was already built in the early 2000s. So very, very different, much smaller infrastructure when you consider that.
How you connect those two when there's a different.
It's a concrete manhole box that comes to the surface, and basically we have to get down to the grade that the pipes tie in, and basically knock that box, the hole in the box, and set the two 72-inch pipes into it. No sheet pile.
That's your big takeaway from today. And we're going to get T-shirts that say no sheet pile.
I was talking to the contractor the other day, and they said, well, okay, we've got some big junction boxes, still nothing like at Harmon and 56, but it's heavy infrastructure, these big concrete boxes. And so they may have to bring in a crane, like for the day or something, just to take that box off the truck, set it in the hole. But realize that crane's there for that. That crane is not there to drive sheet pile, which cranes are used for as well, but that is not why the cranes will show up on site.
Okay.
So the water line is gonna run in parallel with this, the project?
Correct.
So it's gonna
Just
go in the
offset.
same stages as the storm drain?
Should be lagged behind
Yeah.
slightly.
But since you're paving over it,
But we won't pave yet. So we'll run the storm drain, and once we're just about done that block, say, the water line will start, so we can keep giving access in and out. We can't do both of them because that'd be both sides of the road. We can't do them at the same time because it would block off complete access. So in order to keep either the north side or the south side lane open, we'll do one and then the other.
so you're gonna do the entire street of the
Storm, yes, sir.
water line and the storm drain?
Yes,
Okay. Before you make the individual connections?
yes.
And then, do you have an idea as far as like how many blocks, or you do a complete phase, or before you go back and actually finish the asphalt?
Right now, the plan is each intersection and a block would be our mobilization for paving.
Okay. Gotta have enough to make it feasible to
Okay.
call in the paving.
Which is what happened last summer on 54.
Correct. We
All
did
way
a
down,
full block.
Finished and then paved over.
Yep.
Or they're poured concrete in stages, don't you?
They did to stabilize the surface, and they'll have to make a decision what they'll stabilize the surface with, between crushed rock or whatever, knowing that they still gotta put the water line in before they pave everything and get on it.
Probably won't be concrete.
Okay, we got 2 more questions before we break out real quick. And keep in mind, the engineers, the team is all going to be here at their stations to answer individual questions. And if you think of one, please, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be able to answer them all. So, yes, ma'am, you had a question first.
Yes, about time, time approximately of completion.
Well, if I could give you that time, I would also get a couple of lottery tickets and, you know, that.
I'm saying, do we have a,
What's the schedule in the contract?
right,
We have a project scheduled within the contract, which was 2 years.
No, and I don't mean to joke and kid around, but
Right, things happen.
I fully anticipate that, given the experience that we experienced on 54th Street and the things that we'll find, we saw illegal gas connections, blockages, all manner of things that for the last century were put into the storm drain that were not supposed to be there. I mean, we're talking just a couple decades ago, if you had an oil change for your car, you know where you put it. And that hardens and solidifies once you get underneath the street where it's much cooler. So we would love to see it at 2 years, but we're going to keep at it to get those improvements there as long as it takes. Yes?
Yeah, similar question. So the remainder of that 54th Street project, we're talking 5, 10 years down the road, you think?
Well, it depends on as funding comes available. You'll see another SPLOST provision that's coming up on the ballot next year, or other funding provisions. I hope that City Council will continue fighting for these investments each year, but of course that's a battle. But we do know that in value engineering this, the most important infrastructure for us to be able to get was that one stretch of 54th Street, because right at the end at Reynolds was the deepest part of that stretch. So we know for now everything from Abercorn on 54th will drain down to that bottom point of Reynolds, but this is still fully engineered, and we will keep chipping away at this.
Yeah, Ron was just saying, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, even though we're not getting that section done, again, folks along that section are going to see improvements, because just getting that portion done takes capacity relief, I guess, off the existing line running down the 48-inch line running down 55th Street. And again, these lines, you know, tie to it. So, and doing this project will relieve the 55th Street 48-inch diameter line, because it drains now to it. So now this conveyance will be picked up and taken to Harmon Street. So again, it takes release capacity on that line, and so you're still going to see improvements. But will you see 100-year storm event conveyance without some water ponding in the street? No. Our model says we need that to relieve that.
Well, and I know that the brain can only absorb what the rear end can endure. So we've been here for about an hour time. Thank you so much for your patience and sitting in to learn more. Please tell your friends and neighbors. Grab the contact information. We're going to be at stage throughout the room to answer all of your questions. And please stay in touch. We'll be back with another update next quarter in a couple of months to check in on the progress and hopefully celebrate some success. But thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate you very much. And please stay in touch. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, y'all can stay up there and I'll head to the back.